So today's video was inspired by a couple that reached out to me. They're thinking about moving to Fleming Island in a year or two. And they sent me a list of questions that they wanted to talk about when we spoke on the phone. And they were great questions. So I thought it would make a perfect video because I know other people have those same questions. They actually found some of these questions from a real estate agent who is in another state. And he was doing a comparison of why you shouldn't move to Florida and why you should move to his area instead, which is actually kind of good. I mean, it is neat to compare it, but I noticed that when I watched his video, some of the information was accurate and some of it was not. So I'm going to talk about both, what was true and what was not, and set the record straight. Now, I'm not looking to diss this agent or have any drama whatsoever, so I am not going to name names or areas. I will say that he is in a coastal city that's about 3 or 4 states north of us. And we're going to call him Agent TK421. Okay, first we're going to talk about hurricanes. One of the things that TK421 said was we get a lot of hurricanes compared to his area, and that is correct. Florida is the #1 state for getting storms. We kind of stick out like a sore thumb. And I've heard, I haven't come across this yet, that our people, well, we're unique. So that could bring storms in too. I don't know if that's true or not. But yes, we get a lot of hurricanes, and there is no part of Florida that does not get hit. We all do, whether it's a tropical storm or a hurricane. Now, some areas get hit harder than others. South Florida and the Panhandle, they get beat up a lot more than my area, which is Northeast Florida, like Jacksonville, St. Johns County, Clay County. The last time Jacksonville had a direct hit from a hurricane was back in 1964, and that was Hurricane Dora. That was a direct hit. We have not had a direct hit since then. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't in the future. You never know. Anything can happen. So if I hear people saying that Pam Graham said we don't get direct hits by hurricanes, I'm going to deny it because I did not say that. So what have we gotten? Well, I'm going to talk about my experiences. I've been here since 1999. I remember being nervous the first time we had to, well, we kind of evacuated. We went to my aunt's house. I hid in the closet with the kids and the dog. I know, brave, brave, brave. But it was a little nervy. But once we got used to it, it's actually more annoying having to get ready for a storm than the storm itself. In 2004, we had all these storms come through. We had Charlie, Bonnie, Jean, Francis, and it was like one after another. And I'm not going to lie, I mean, I did prepare each time, and, we did have extra supplies. And speaking of supplies, if you're from an area that has blizzards, you know what I'm about to talk about. Bread, milk, what else is going? Nothing on the shelves. Well, that's the same here. Plus, you got to throw in propane, water. That's the biggie here is water. You got to make sure you have enough. And generators. The Home Depot and Lowe's, they sell a lot of generators because us Floridians, we don't fear the storms. We fear the aftermath of the storms, meaning having no AC, no electric. That's what we fear, because no AC in probably the hottest month of the year, which is August, because hurricanes and tropical storms, they get their strength by warmer waters. So that's why we tend to peak in August and September. Land will slow the little buggers down, make a little less strength, but we have water on both sides, so it can cross over and get strengthened. And I think that's what Hurricane Dora did too. It went across the land, went out in the water, said, "Oh, I'm not done," and come back and hit us. But that was before my time. So I can't speak with complete certainty on that. But yes, we do get the storms. The other ones we've had, oh, I should backtrack. 2004, let's go back to that. People in Clay County lost power for like 10 days. Oh my gosh, they were angry. I mean, even putting words on the building of Clay Electric that I am not going to repeat here because they were not nice. See what I mean? We're more worried about the not having power and having AC. Plus, we have hurricane parties. We have to have power for those. But fast forward it, we had Irma. Now, Hurricane Irma, well, actually, she was more like a tropical storm once she got here. She did do some damage as far as flooding. People in the areas of Black Creek and Middleburg had a lot of flooding, and there were houses that were destroyed. Even on Blanding and 218, it rose, and that water went on to Blanding. It crossed the street, went over to Walgreens. It was crazy. I've never seen it that high. It actually did some damage to the bridge there at 218. They had to do some emergency repairs, and eventually they had to redo the bridge when they were widening Blanding. So we did have that. And that doesn't affect everyone, obviously. So when you're purchasing a house and you're thinking about waterfront property, you really need to dig deep and do research and find out how the water rises. Is it going to cause flooding? Are you up on stilts? Are you up on a hill? There's so many factors. So make sure you ask plenty of questions before you do buy waterfront property to make sure that it doesn't flood. Okay, another thing Agent TK421 said was that a lot of insurance companies went bankrupt, a lot of insurance companies have left the state, and that we only have citizens, and that everything is very, very expensive. Okay, some of this, let's unpack. Citizens insurance is the insurance for the state of Florida. And that is for people to fall back on if they cannot get insurance on their house. And sometimes that happens when, let's say your house is 100 years old. Many insurers won't insure that. So they have to fall back on Citizens Insurance. That is not the only insurance company in the state of Florida. There are private insurance companies as well. Some have went bankrupt. That is true. Some have left the state. Some, like State Farm, they will not insure houses that are too old. Like I called them, I have a 1981 house. They won't insure my house anymore. I have Liberty Mutual right now, and I have no problems whatsoever. Costs have went up. I bought my house in 2021, and we paid, I think it was $800 for it, for the homeowner's insurance, not the house itself. Well, wish. And now it is about $950. We're in the spring of 2024. Our renewal will be in July. So I am a little nervous about how much it's going to go up because I don't want to pay more. And I know many people have that worry too. So there are things you can do to try to lower the cost. 1 and 2 are combined, maybe, is to get a wind mitigation report. That's done for your roof. If your roof is newer, if it needs to be replaced, more than likely that's not going to work for you. You can get a 4-point inspection, which covers your roof, your HVAC, your plumbing, and your electric, if those units are in great shape. I mean, some insurance companies are going to require those. Okay, another thing that Agent TK421 said was, if your roof is 10 years old in Florida, you cannot get insurance. You will not be renewed. Well, we were seeing that happen, actually. Insurance companies were not renewing people with 10-year roofs or giving new insurance to 10-year roofs. And that's ridiculous because a 10-year-old roof should not need to be replaced if it's been maintained and has not had any damage. That is absolutely ridiculous. And those things are not cheap. Yes, the costs have went up with roofs. They are so expensive that that's just ridiculous after 10 years. So Governor DeSantis did sign into law that if your roof is 15 years old or younger, you cannot be denied insurance or have your insurance not renewed. If it's over 15 years, you can get a roof inspection done and get a letter from the company stating how many years life is still left on it. And that should help you to get renewed or to get new insurance. Now, I just want to say, with the cost of the roofs, I would definitely make sure you put money away in the event that it is time to replace your roof, because they are not cheap. The costs have went up within the past 5 or so years. So make sure you do that. So Agent TK421 said that flood insurance was forced and you're required to get it in the state of Florida. Well, that's not true. There are times where you have to have flood insurance. Like, let's say you have a mortgage and you're in a flood zone. The mortgage company is going to require you to have flood insurance. No way around it. If you have Citizens, which you've heard Citizens mention, it is the insurance company for the state of Florida. So if a homeowner can't get regular private insurance, they can fall back on Citizens. That usually happens if, let's say, for example, the house is like 100 years old. I'll give you an example. Citizens is requiring anyone who is insured with their policy and has a wind protection policy to get flood insurance. But it's not all at once. Like, it's being phased in. So by January 1st, 2027, everyone on Citizens has to have flood insurance. Right now, they're kind of phasing it in by, anyone that has a value of 600,000 or more for their property, and then lower prices as it goes on. But by January 1st, 2027, anyone with Citizens has to have flood insurance. I have a private insurer. Right now we have Liberty Mutual. We do not have to have flood insurance. We're not in a flood zone. And here's a kicker. You may not flood if you're in a flood zone. And you may flood if you're not in a flood zone. You can't get any more Florida than that. But let me explain. I lived on a cul-de-sac in the North Middleburg area. Our cul-de-sac flooded, and a couple of the houses flooded too. We were not in a flood zone, and thankfully our house was not one of them. But we were not in a flood zone. The neighborhood behind us, which is called Greenwood, is not in a flood zone. But there are houses in the back of the neighborhood, and even some houses in the front, especially on the road called Nightbox, that have flooded. Not in a flood zone. Now, you can get flood insurance even if you're not in a flood zone, and it tends to be a lot cheaper than if it's in a flood zone. So hopefully that doesn't confuse you. If you have any questions about that, just let me know and reach out. So another thing TK421 mentioned was repairs taking forever once a storm comes through and being very, very expensive, people not able to get the repairs done, but for months and months and months. I cannot with all certainty answer that question completely, because we have not had much in the way of storms doing a lot of damage here in Clay County, except for in 2017 when I mentioned Hurricane Irma. She came through, she weakened, but she became a rain experience where people around Doctors Lake Drive or Doctors Lake and Black Creek saw a lot of flooding. There were about 450 homes affected, and about over 900 people had to go to the local shelters because of the waters rising. It was crazy. It took years for that to happen as far as repairs, but also things that were done were, the county buying some of the houses so they can make green spaces to help with future flooding, especially if it was houses that had flooded over and over again. Some of the houses they required, if they were going to be rebuilt, they would have to be rebuilt on stilts. Some people let their houses go to foreclosure. So that was probably the worst event that I had to witness, not firsthand because I don't live by Black Creek or Doctors Lake. So that was significant. But I would imagine for the folks at the Panhandle and farther south, when bigger areas end up, having a lot of damage, you need to make sure that you secure your property, like throw tarps over the roof so that you're not getting flooding and encouraging more damage. And mold would be really bad here, especially, you lose power and you can't have that AC running to help with the mold. So make sure you do put tarps over to keep the moisture and water out. But I have heard that, it did take a time for people down south in the panhandle to get repairs done. And also, a lot of people from our area, they'll go to those areas to try to help out, including, our emergency services, Clay Electric, the different electric companies. They go to try to help out and speed it up a little bit. So, yeah, farther south, I would imagine. Here, I can't speak for it. Irma was different. It was a big rain event, not necessarily the winds and stuff. So that is one of those things that, you just have to wait and see and prepare for the best. Okay, last but not least, TK421 mentioned that property taxes were just shocking people. They buy their house, they enjoy the property tax of the current owner for that current tax year that they bought in, and then the next year, boom, property taxes doubled, tripled. Okay, so that is kind of true. And I'm not sure how it works in other states, but in Florida, it is based on your price that you pay for your house. So that is going to change. So let's say I'm going to use my house as an example. As I mentioned, we bought it July 2021. We paid $191,000 for it, and the taxes that the old owner were paying were about $716. So we got to enjoy that price for that tax year of 2021. When it reassessed at the purchase price, plus they usually discount like 20%, but then we have homestead, because homestead is for people who occupy the home. And it's not just a cut and dry $50,000 off the assessed value, because schools do not have, they get paid out of our taxes, and the $50,000 doesn't come off the schools like it does for all the other services. So it's not an easy straight line figure. You do have to do a little calculations. But anyway, our property taxes doubled. And yeah, that's more than doubled. And that was, I expected it, I knew, but it's still a little bit of a shock, because I'd rather enjoy the $700, because I don't know about you guys. I don't want to pay the government any more than I have to. But because we saw such price increases from like 2020 and up until like 2022, and a little bit of price increase last year too, there was some shock when people got their tax bills, especially if the homeowner that owned it before them had been in the house for a while and they enjoyed lower taxes. And it is a shock. So be prepared for that. When you have property taxes, it's going to be based on what you pay for your home. Okay, so just remember that and plan for it. Okay, ways you can save is make sure if you have it escrowed, or even if you don't, you're paying cash and you're paying up the year for every year, make sure you do this a month or so in advance. Pretty much when they give you your renewal notice, because then you know what your insurance is going to be. If it stays the same, no worries. If it doesn't, well, it might be time to search for another company. That's one thing you can do, is you can call around and get quotes from different companies. Maybe ask locally if you have your favorite realtor. Ask them for some information on companies. Try that. You could raise your deductible to see if that would help with the cost. If you have a newer roof and you've never had a wind mitigation report done, that can be done by a home inspector. And that report can help save you a little bit of money on your insurance as well. Sometimes, like, more than likely, if you bought it and you have insurance, certain things like Federal Pacific breaker boxes, you probably would have had to have that replaced. Aluminum wiring is one that if you have that, it's probably going to cost you more. And you may find that it's a little more difficult to get insured, even if you do the Lumicon. And that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother subject. More than likely, the best scenario is to rewire your house if you have that problem. And that is expensive too. So you need to weigh the costs and benefits of doing that. Besides calling around, getting a wind mitigation, some insurance companies will also require a 4-point inspection, which is basically your roof, your HVAC, your plumbing, and your electrical. They want to make sure those are good. So there you have it, folks. That is information about all kinds of insurance and property taxes. If you have any questions whatsoever, please send them to me. You can send me a text, you can give me a call, check out the number below, my email address, check that out. It's on the screen. You can email me. I love answering questions, so don't worry that you're going to offend me or I'm going to be upset. Send them my way because I'll also make videos about them too. So the more questions, the happier I am too.